sometimes watching the news is not exactly the most uplifting thing in the world.
Right.
And so I saw that I had the power to be able to change that a little bit.
Welcome, friends. This is Adrian Sinclair, and this is the Adrian Sinclair Show, and in which I talk with interesting people about interesting topics and bring you hopefully some value from the tips and tricks and pro tips from my guests. And today, my guest is none other than Doug Jessop, ABC4 personality. He's a journalist, a brand builder, an executive producer, and a whole lot more. And he's going to tell you a little bit more about that. So welcome to the show, Doug. Appreciate you being over here.
No problem. Thanks, Adrian.
I want to start off with, so we're going to talk about your experience. You have 40 plus years of being in journalism and broadcasting. You've done a lot of different things. And, we're in this really interesting place right now where we have the broadcasting, stations out there doing what they're doing. There is the social media that's kind of jumping into that. And it's really interesting times in which a journalist like yourself, a TV personality, finding yourself in this kind of hybrid space. So share with us a little bit about you, and then about like what is happening right now with the media and from your perspective.
Okay. It's a long story,
Let's start at the beginning.
Start at the beginning. As silly as it sounds, the reason I got into broadcasting was I was 12 years old and got a cassette recorder for Christmas. And so I would interview everybody and everything, and so that kind of did stuff. But a lot of it was my grandfather. He was the guy that always had a camera in his hand. So there's not very many pictures of him,
right?
But there's lots of movies and pictures. I mean, when he died, I inherited 8mm films of like the 1940-something Rose Parade, or there was one time he did a photograph of a very rare snowstorm in Pasadena, California. It's like, wow, okay, that's cool. So he told stories through pictures.
Right.
And he and I were very, very tight. And, so it's
that's what got you going.
Kind of what got me going, and so I basically kind of have in my mind, would Gramps be proud of what I'm doing?
Right. You are a storyteller.
Yeah.
You are, you said everyone has a story. Stories have power, and they help to understand each other.
Right.
Tell me more about, like, you've started Jessop's Journal, right? So here it is.
That's a little logo.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is true. I mean, the thing, I guess a lot of what happens is I've been in the business a long time, and we've done all kinds of stuff. And how do we put this politely? Sometimes watching the news is not exactly the most uplifting thing in the world.
Right.
And so I saw that I had the power to be able to change that a little bit. And the news director, Todd Reed, has been very, very supportive of me and kind of mentored me along on some of this stuff. But the idea is that truly everyone does have a story. I mean, like, for example, everyone can help someone.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. So here it is, a T-shirt with "Everyone Can Help Someone."
Okay.
One of my guests on the show, and that's why I consider myself so blessed being able to do this, having these interesting guests on my show, was coming in from California and from affluent family, both parents, very well off, and he got addicted to drugs. He became homeless. He basically his girlfriend overdosed. Just a terrific, story in terms of like the progression of like his life into kind of all the way down to the bottom as much as you can imagine. And out of that, he bounced up, and now he's here in Utah, and Ian Rader is his name, and he started Sobriety Works. And and basically he's helping other homeless and drug addicted people and helping out even ex-felons who are coming out of the prison system because nobody was going to rent them any place to stay at, and he helps them out. And when I asked him, if you could go back in time, what would you change in your life? Would you give yourself an advice to, hey, don't do that, that's gonna really hurt in your life? And he said, no, Adrian, I am exactly where I am, because of my history, because of my experiences, because I was homeless many times and went through the all of those horrific experiences. And so he really believes that everyone can help someone, and that's kind of his motto, and that's what he's doing. And that's the story behind this T-shirt.
Okay. Well, then I'll tell you a story, and I'll give you a hat. So it's a little family motto that we have that says, "Life is never boring."
Life is never boring.
So I'm a media guy, and I have a big megaphone, and I meet lots of people from different every kind of things. But the funky part of this actually is that the phrase "life is never boring" is something we've had in the family because. So I'm from Southern California. I came up from, let's just say a meager background. So I would be the opposite of the guy you talked with before. But it's like, ooh. This was a long time ago. So, I had the hair down, the whole shebang. Okay. But I came up to college up in Utah and coming from Southern California. And I'm a pretty talkative, extroverted guy. Well, I met this one girl with the most beautiful eyes. And I was, for the first time, kind of speechless. It's like, oh, man, okay. But we started dating. And her dad was an engineer. And I'm the farthest from an engineer. I'm a creative type guy, okay?
Right.
And so she, as we're dating, she tells me the story. I'm going, why are you telling me this? But she says, my dad had this guy picked out for me. Okay, he was gonna be an accountant, if I remember right. So he'd be able to provide for the family. Now, granted, as a father and a grandfather, I kind of get the mixed, the set up marriages now. But at that time,
well, you want the best for your kids.
You want the best for your kids, right? But anyway, so out of duty, she said, "Okay, Dad, I'll go on a date with him." So she went on a couple dates with this guy. And again, we're just starting to date, and she's telling me this. And she's, he was a nice guy, but he was boring. So I put my arm around her, and I says, honey, you stick with me. Life will never be boring. And so I've owned the domain "Life is never boring" for ages, and then I'm going, I'm doing all this stuff. So I make hats and and do a little charity work under the brand of "Life Never Boring," because the thing with all the craziness, as life has gone on, we'll look at each other, take a deep breath, do a little wink, and say, "Life is never boring."
That's right.
Sometimes you want it to be, but the reality is, I truly do believe with what this other guy said, and let's get real, it's a total ripoff of Star Trek, but, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I do truly believe that we are a sum of our experiences because, my mind thinks I'm 38. I'm 38 years old, yeah, right. But apparently my body doesn't quite agree. So I'll go do things that I used to do, and my body goes, Doug, don't do that.
Don't do that anymore.
But, through life, I've been able to get, I hope what we affectionately call wisdom, and you kind of figure out those things. But at the same time, and again, just personal opinion here, but if you just take the safe road, okay, you just take that one, you're gonna get through life, but it's about the stories that you have along the way.
Right.
It's about those experiences, those journeys, and everybody. I could take anybody off the street and sit down with them and find out that they have a story.
I believe that. In fact, the premise of this show, conversations with interesting people about interesting topics, is an opening where everyone who I bring in on the show, everyone who somehow finds his or her way in my life in this show and shares their story has in some way positively impacted, whether it's different perspective, whether it's just a story that opens up a different view on things. It's just amazing, and so I truly believe in that. It's not only the celebrities out there that have the monopoly to have like interesting lives and stories, because it could be, the most humble person in a world will have some kind of an experience that you would never have ever, and you learn from that, and you listen to it, and your life is enriched. So I truly believe that. I believe that everybody has a story. I believe that everybody is a storyteller, but you also have a additional thing that goes along with that. Through storytelling, what you're saying on your show, on actually, we have several shows.
Couple, yeah.
But the underlying thing behind the storytelling is that if you allow for that space to be where you can share, where you can talk to someone, you have an opportunity to find out how much in common you have,
yes.
as opposed to a thing that pushes people away.
Exactly.
Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, that's, and granted, this is a pet peeve. I think there's a lot of really, really loud screaming voices on the right, and there's a lot of loud screaming voices on the left.
Right.
But I think the majority of the country, and for that matter, the world, just wants to get along, and figure this out.
With that.
And so, I do get to interview celebrities and this, that, and the other. And it is kind of weird because on the one hand, there's their on TV camera face, but then you get chatting with them. Two weird experiences. Okay, so over the years, again, I've had some interesting stuff, and I won't say the name so I don't embarrass him, but so I remember we were doing WWE wrestling, World Federation Wrestling. Okay, and so I was doing some promos with them, and so I gave him this line, and he says, "Okay, hang on, give me a second." Okay, the guy. Talk steroids. Okay, cup size went way up. But on the flip side, we're chatting afterwards, and these guys are talking about, going boating this weekend and what's happening to their 401k and everything. So they put their pants on one leg at a time, just like everybody else.
Right.
But then there's also people that will give you this little nugget that you carry with them. So one of the latest ones is a gentleman by the name of James Jackson III. Doesn't that sound just like so regal, okay?
It is.
Well, James Jackson III is a gentleman that actually is the founder and president of the Utah Black Chamber of Commerce. Okay, his dad was, and I wanted to sing Wichita lineman when he said this, I swear, but my dad's a lineman, that works on the phone lines and all the cell towers and everything. But I says I wanted to find out because I was very close to my gramps, and come to find out he was too. So the original James,
right? This
guy emigrated from, and I got to remember, I'm not even sure I remember how to pronounce it. From the Ozarks, okay, Okefenokee or whatever, something like that. And it was like, I think it was the 50s or something, and he was coming through. They were going to California to go get jobs with the railroad. Well, they ended up stopping in Utah and said, "Hey, I like this place. Let's stay here." And I think people realize that in the 50s and 60s that the South was segregated. But I don't know if people realize that here in Utah, things were segregated. I'm going, whoa, okay. And they found Rose Park, and their community was the Baptist church. And so what's cool is, so James's grandfather and grandmother, were heavily involved. So as a 12-year-old kid, so I got a microphone, okay. Well, he apparently did too. But in a different way in a church, because he started speaking at churches and like all over the place. It's just like, wow. And, and his grandfather kind of taught him. But here's the other thing. His grandfather ended up being, I think, a custodian up at the University of Utah for years. He came to work in a suit, sometimes even a 3-piece suit, because that's the kind of style, that's the kind of dedication, that's the kind of man he was.
Right.
I'm going, I would have loved your Gramps. Because my Gramps, same kind of thing, he was a very sharp dresser and everything. And during the Depression, he was a chauffeur. And he taught me that, he says, Doug, when times are down, The people that have money still have money. It's just maybe a little different, but they still have money. It's like, oh, okay. But the other thing is to remember, and this is the way I was raised, I don't care what title you have, you treat the custodian the same way as you treat the CEO. Because when it gets down to it, we're all just human beings.
We're all just human beings. And as the saying goes, even a bishop is made out of 80% of water.
Well, yeah. Well, but the nugget that he told me, that James Jackson III told me, and
because he had that one line in that.
Oh, there's this one line that I'm just going. So I need to be positioned ready for it. Okay, Adrian. So here's my advice from James. So I do not take credit. People need to listen more to understand instead of listening to respond. I mean, think about it. Okay, somebody's talking to you, and you get so many people, you can even see just in their eyes, they're going,
building it up.
Just wait, I got to say something, I got to say something.
Yeah.
No, take a chill pill, listen to what this person's saying, and you might find out something that you go, huh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing when I do a lot of these stories. A lot of business owners, they are so used to doing what they do, they have no clue how cool their job is. It's like, yeah, it's what I do all the time. Perfect example, Dannon Yogurt. Dannon Yogurt has a plant in West Jordan.
Yeah.
Well, they have the largest herd of cattle in Utah, and it's down in Millard County, near Delta. They got 20,000 cows down there. Okay, Millard County, great little spot, but there are more cows than people. The whole county has like one stoplight, okay? And so I went down there. I think I did get a red on the stoplight, but and went to one of these dairies and helped milk cows. Then we came back to the plant and say, okay, what happens? And what was interesting is I'm walking along with the manager, and I said, just out of curiosity, how many cups of yogurt do you guys make a day? Blah, 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 blah. I go, whoa, hang on. Come back here. Okay. Say that again on camera, because I can't believe what you just said. And I was amazed.
How many was it?
3 million.
A day?
A day.
Wow.
Not a year, not a week, a day. It's like, holy heck.
Yeah.
Because, so the facts are, if you have Dannon Yogurt pretty much anywhere in the Intermountain West, you are consuming a product that was made from Utah cows.
Right. So this was this for your Utah Success Stories show? Because you have two shows, right? You got Jessop's Journal and then Jessop Journal and then Utah Success Stories. Mm-hmm. Which makes me kind of envious of you in that respect, because you get to go and see these different companies, and it's kind of like 30 Jobs with Mike Rowe, right? Mm-hmm. Where you kind of go out over there and you see how things are behind a curtain and kind of experience it.
It's turned into a combination of dirty jobs and how it's made.
Yeah.
Love manufacturing jobs and everything. But the other thing you look at is I like to celebrate, number one, success. I mean, it's contagious. People just go, okay, that's great. And then Utah specifically has a very entrepreneurial spirit here. Mm-hmm. ABC has a show called Shark Tank. Okay. And the facts are that Utah is one of the highest appearance rates in the country for Shark Tank.
Wow.
And so I get to interview a lot of those people, and so it's kind of, and that's kind of how this thing kind of got going a number of years ago, and, I'm having fun.
Yeah. The interesting thing, I think, about what you do is because you are with ABC4, but you also do, your journal show, your Jessop Journal, mm-hmm. which is a sort of a combination of in the broadcasting on TV, you have
mm-hmm.
a limited amount of time in programming, right? Like
mm-hmm.
you got to squeeze things into
mm-hmm.
minutes. Versus now, there's with the YouTube and all internet where you can post long podcasts, just like this one. This is
mm-hmm.
You kind of managed to marry those two worlds together, which is, I think, interesting. I would love to hear how you A, managed to do that, and B, how is that going? Because that's what you do. You do like these shorter pieces on TV and TV programming, and then you kind of point people to Jessop's journal where they can watch the whole interview or lengthier, in which you have the time to do kind of like what I do over here. It's just like you allow enough time to delve deeper into topics so that the guest is not squeezed into a soundbite.
Right.
How is that in terms of changing the corporate culture of like convincing ABC to like, hey, I got this idea. They're like, are you?
So you're asking, what happens behind the curtain, right?
That's right.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, so a normal news story is about a minute long. Okay, in the 10 o'clock news.
Yeah.
And so I'm on every Sunday night, the 10 o'clock news, and my stories. It doesn't sound like a lot, but I get 2 minutes. Okay, which in our world sounds like it's forever. Okay,
Right.
It's like, yeah, that's awesome. And so that's why because you get to go a little in depth. And it's good in depth, and so it works. Well, my internet guys and and my news director kind of looked and said, "Hey, Doug's Utah success stories are doing really, really well." Okay, great. So the news director took me aside and says, "Hey, we want to start doing more and more digital stories because the news business is changing, the broadcast business is changing." In fact, I'm going to give you a little sidebar off this, okay? And this is okay. Which camera should I look at here? Okay.
Right over there.
See, here's the thing. Right there?
Right there.
Okay. I will sometimes hear people say, "Oh, I don't watch television anymore." Okay. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'm going to call bullshit. Okay.
You're allowed to say it on this show.
Okay. Because here's the deal. You may not watch television right when it airs, but the fact that you can watch on demand at abc4.com, you can watch, and I post my stuff on YouTube all over the place, okay? But the reality is that, and I know, mean no disrespect here, Adrian, but the reality is that when it comes to making sure that, you can do a podcast, anybody can do a podcast, okay? But just because you can doesn't mean you necessarily should. And so, okay, now I'm going to go over here. And what that means is it's a credibility thing, okay?
Yeah.
Every once in a while you'll get, people, "Oh, you're fake news, fake news." Hello, we check. We don't put anything on until we have a corroborated source. Somebody gives that a little factoid and says, "Yeah, we make, the most blah, 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 blah." Oh, okay. Yeah. Where can you give me a source?
Yeah.
Okay. Because otherwise I won't put it up. So a lot of time when you see graphics that I put up, there'll be a little thing, and I'd like to put source underneath.
Right.
Anyway, I digress. But so the news director said, "You're doing a lot of these. How would you feel about doing extended interviews?" And I'm going, "Heck yeah, they're easier." Because it's harder.
It's harder to squeeze it in.
To squeeze things in because you got to really figure it out.
Right.
And I said, "Yeah, sure." And then I obviously have a lot of contacts and a lot of people that I'm going, "Hey, come on over, have some fun with this." It was interesting, and this is a story you have not heard because I had lunch. There was an intriguing one. And Terry, I hope you don't want to shoot me on this one, but I'm going to share the story. Okay. One of my first Utah success stories was a gentleman by the name of Terry Grant. He's the president of KeyBank. So, it's a pretty up there guy. And he was telling me about, how the business works, but a lot of it was a love story, because he talks about a love story talking about meeting his wife, and then dating, and then going all over the world in the banking industry. I mean, this guy, he ended up being, at the same school as Bruce Springsteen, okay, otherwise known as the boss. And his, he saw him across the way. His wife says, "No, they were at a PTA meeting. No, go over there. No." He says, "I gotta go." Said, "Hey, you don't want to think," because also had been he and his wife's first concert, or first date was at a concert with Bruce Springsteen. So go figure.
Right.
Well, fast forward a couple years back, and they were going down to the family cabin, and there was a really horrible car accident. They were in a truck, and apparently the back tire exploded, and I mean, I was shocked when he showed me the pictures. It's like, whoa. He came out with some, pretty bruised up, but his wife was really bad. She was alive, but she was pretty much in a vegetative state. And so he ended up being her caregiver, and he had to change his whole life. And after the story ran, his wife passed, a little bit ago, a while ago. And but there was a quote in that story that again taught me something. He says, we are taught as bankers to judge people. And the first one, there's the 5 C's and blah, blah, blah. And the first one is character. He says, going through this, I have learned that maybe I've judged people too harshly. President of the bank, it's like, whoa, okay. He said, by going through this experience, I've learned that you never know what somebody else is going through. So maybe, they're late or this, that, and the other. Well, you don't know. For all they know, they're a single mom that has to go, drop off the kids, or, the kid's sick in the night, or what. I mean, there's just, stuff happens. Well, his wife passed long enough that, he started dating again. And I was surprised to hear this. I'm going, okay. So he says that a number of the women that he has dated have actually brought up our interview and said, in your interview, you said blah, blah, blah. And I'm going, whoa. So we were teasing. So apparently if you put his name in, it Googles up really high, but go figure. I mean, that is the good and bad of my business, though, is because on the one hand, and this took some convincing for me, is you've got your business on-air news life, but you also have a personal life.
Right.
And those lines get blurred really easily.
Especially now with social media, right?
Yeah.
Where you have to be almost constantly online. And I'm sure that ABC is kind of maybe pressuring you to kind of like,
you think?
Please post, so you're constantly in the eye of the public, so you things are fresh. And that's kind of like where I think, some of the troubles and issues are developing, because we are, as a society, we have these shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter sound bites to work with. And, it used to be full-on stories. Then it's like, then you have Facebook, shorter videos. Then, you had YouTube. And then now you have like Instagram and TikTok, all these things. So it's like attention span is just,
attention span of a gnat.
It is, it is just literally, Dory from Finding Nemo. Like, what? Just like that. And so where is this heading? That's why I am surprised and happy that ABC4 was open to doing what you're doing right now, which is have a new story, 2 minutes, whatever the format is on TV, and then just allow for that expanded interview, because I think a lot of the stuff that we're missing out when you're talking to a guest is in all that additional context. When you distill a story to just very few points or the core, yes, those are straight to the point, but you're missing the context of it because there's not enough time to talk about it. So that's why when you're allowed for that to happen, when you can talk to your guests and actually see the person in it, not only that facade that they have to be in those 2 minutes where they are like, I'm the CEO of so and so company and this is what we do and da 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 da. When you start talking for half an hour or maybe an hour, then you're like, oh, you're a person. You have a story. You have a journey that you want. Let me see that. Let me hear that. And I think this is just my theory, my opinion, that people want that. They want that. Of course, they want the short things, the distilled things as well, but they also want to have at least an option. So if something does hook them in terms of like, oh, that was interesting. When you spoke to that, I want more, and now they have an option. So that's kind of like what I do over here as well. I want to provide a platform for interesting people to share their stories, because we can always edit out things in terms of getting short little clips on topics, so little teasers that people can basically watch as like, wow, that's interesting. This guy Doug Jessop is a really interesting dude. Like I've seen him on the other side of the camera. Now I can learn a little bit more about him, and so I think that's really healthy, and so I'm really enjoying that. Not only it's from a selfish point of view, I love learning and I love hearing people's stories. So I'm glad that you're doing that with bigger megaphone in a sense of kind of building this hybrid between the two. But I'm sure it took some convincing.
Well, it was funny. They actually came to me a little bit, and because I am kind of known as the storyteller guy, and the internet guys gave me some stats, and I'm going, okay, sure, whatever that means, So the thing that's kind of cool, and this one I don't mean to sound braggy, but it's just like, okay, apparently it's working. Because every single one of the on-air talent get a little report, and it shows a couple things, and one of the big ones is what's called a bounce rate.
Yeah.
And so what that means is, okay, you see this headline, because there's the big, huge emphasis on the headline, and you click on it.
Attention grabber.
Yeah, what percentage of people leave versus which percentage of people stay,
and how long,
and then the time spent, and so for me, I have the lowest bounce rate at the station, which means that when people go to they're going intentionally,
right?
And and there's a lot of them, and then I also have the longest time. Now, granted, that's partly because I have longer stories, but it seems to be working.
Do you attribute that to the storytelling aspect of your interviews, of that conversation, that you do allow for that broader, in a Jessop Journal?
I think it might be.
Think?
I mean, because it is intriguing, though, because, what you'd said earlier about, the attention span thing, because I was a little concerned about that when we first started.
Right.
But apparently, again, people like to hear intriguing stories. They like to hear this stuff. But, I admit I have an advantage because we're a big broadcast group,
right?
And so I have access to people that most people wouldn't. But the other thing that I think is resonating is the fact that you see somebody that may or may not be a celebrity. You're going through a problem, and it's just like, I got a problem with my kid, or I got blah 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 blah, and you feel like you're alone, Adrian. What would it make you feel like if you watch somebody else and you're going, that's exactly the same thing that I'm going through.
Relate to something.
Right. And so the thing is, when you find those commonalities, people go, oh, number one, you might find a newfound respect for a celebrity that you thought was a douchebag, or that sounds kind of goofy, but the thing is, we all do have certain things. We all want to be understood.
Yeah.
We all want to feel like we're being heard.
Yeah.
And and let's get real. We all want to be loved.
It's
appreciated.
It's interesting how you mentioned that gratitude. The guest that I had right before you coming in today, she was talking. She's a transformational speaker, and that's what when she's talking to in a corporate world. She says that showing gratitude but genuine, not
very much so.
Yeah, sincere and genuine gratitude when it's expressed is what keeps people working at the companies where they work. 4 times over, when there's this gratitude, this community, this culture where someone says, what, Doug, thank you. Like, remember, last week or 2 weeks ago you did this thing, and I really appreciated you doing that. And what a change of mindset that can do on you. But that's something, in storytelling where you have that space when you can talk about it, then your guests at least have enough space and time to talk about these things. And so you see more than just, you see that human side of it, which I think is what's so appealing to the viewers, because they see a celebrity, they see someone or subject matter experts, like, this is who that person is as a role. But if you don't get to see them as the person, as a father, mother, brother, whatever, then you're missing that whole aspect, and you just put them in this box of celebrity, awesome life, whatever. No, they have plenty of money, no issues at all. They just kind of live in it. I wish I'd be like that. And then they don't see the other aspect of it. So what are some of the most interesting interviews or conversations that you had with some of your guests that were kind of like surprising to you, how they turned out? Maybe you had like a preconception, it's going to go this way, it's going to be a standard interview, what have you, and then exploded into something.
It's just, I was trying to summarize 40 years,
In 2 minutes, please.
Yeah, you're right. Well, okay, hang on, let me get to that, It kind of depends on what you're looking at
or
from
maybe
a topic
theme.
standpoint.
Maybe there's a theme.
The thing that the biggest thing actually probably is the fact that, and I kind of come back to what I said before. There's the persona of what you see, especially with public figures. Okay, with what you see in front of the camera.
Right.
And then when the lights are off and this, that, and the other. I have a personal definition of the word integrity. Okay? And my definition of integrity is what somebody does when nobody's looking. When there's no cameras there, there's not, they're not
Right.
doing it for anything. And so I've met some people that I just really, really admire and to see what they've done. But I also have seen, I was like, I'm trying to remember his name, Mayhew, the guy that played Chewbacca.
Chewbacca?
Okay?
Yeah, Matthew Mayhew.
He's a he's a really tall guy, and but it was kind of sad to see him. Here he is with a cane, and struggling.
Yeah.
On the flip side, I met Barbara Eden. Okay, now
I Dream of Jeannie.
I Dream of Jeannie. Okay, I grew up in the era when it's like, wow. Okay. Now, granted, she probably can, afford some stuff, but the woman's like 80-something years old, and, she came to the studio, and I was going, whoa, holy criminy, she looked awesome, There are some other stories, though I won't say who their names are, but it's just like, okay, here's a person that, is Miss Sunshine on camera, but she's kind of a little ornery off camera.
Right. We've all heard those stories.
Oh, yeah. But on the flip side, I remember I met, I'm trying to remember her name. Joan Rivers, okay? So now, Joan Rivers kind of has a reputation for being kind of, a little snarky. But I remember at the show that I was at, that we were there together, and she asked me to take care of her dog Spike for her while she was going to go do that. I'm going, sure, go ahead, And, in person, she was the sweetest thing, Wrestlers are the ones that do surprise you the most, though, because, they've got this really,
right.
Fierce type thing. But, they're just Joe Sixpack. And I think that's the other thing to look at is that again, if you look at people, you sit down with them long enough, you're going to find out, instead of all the differences you have,
right.
the more similarities take two. The more similarities you're going to have.
Right. Commonalities that come out because of having the time to understand their story, listen to what they've been through, and being able to connect with that. And that's the power of stories, right? Now, let's talk about journalism and news, fake news.
I knew this was coming.
Yeah,
okay.
I want to hear it from your perspective.
Okay, sure.
What is it that you see, what concerns you? Because, big broadcasting stations, and now they have a little bit of a comeback in terms of people looking at them in terms of the veracity of the stories, because the internet can spin anything. Right? So people are like, okay, where can I get the ground truth? Who do I trust? Right? So it used to be that fake news. You had this race to the bottom by even the big broadcasting companies, because news, you got to get those clicks. You got to get that, who's the story first, and then everything else is secondary. And now I think it's kind of maybe a little bit coming back, because people are like, well, who do I trust? Can I trust everything on the internet? Maybe not. So they kind of maybe are going back. But it's a balance. It's kind of like swinging between the two, the internet and then the big broadcasting news stations. What do you see in terms of how the things will be shaping up in the future? Because the problem with broadcasting right now is it's a business. They need to make money. It's not a free enterprise. It's something that has to make money. So it's a delicate balance that they have to engage in which they need to make money, understandably, but at the same time they are competing with the social media, which is so fast, which quickly hijacks the attention of viewers, right? And if the big guys are behind, then that's already yesterday's story. So what do you think is going to happen next? What do you see?
Well, let me kind of answer that with a little history. Okay, so you put it in perspective. The thing that is intriguing about the broadcast business is, like, for example, with COVID, more people are watching the news now than they have in ages.
Right.
But there's a difference, and this is where I think people need to realize, because there's basically what I classify, and this is just the opinion of Doug, not the opinion of my employer. Okay. Not necessarily, I should say. So there are the local news stations, there are the national networks, but then in addition to that, there are the cable networks, okay? And sometimes people lump all those things into one thing. Not good, okay? And I guess I'll say the names. Okay, so cable. You got Fox and you got CNN. Well, the reality is that people don't realize, again, because it's a broadcast thing. Here's the thing, love him or hate him, the one person that kind of started this is a gentleman by the name of Rush Limbaugh. Okay, well, he went and he was going to do this talk show. You know, he was actually thinking about, he was a sports guy before, you know, and stuff. But he's saying, okay, what do my potential viewers or listeners want? Well, okay, come to find out there's a whole group of people that feel they're underserved and blah, blah, blah. So basically all he did was parrot what he knew what they wanted to hear.
Right.
And gosh almighty, his ratings went, you know, up through the roof. Well, that's the same thing, you know. I mean, Fox does what they do and they're lean because that's what their research says, and that's, okay, there's an available niche.
Isn't that a problem, though?
Yes. Because then you got CNN is going, okay, because CNN started out as cable news network.
Yeah.
And you have to realize, I also came from, having been in the business so long, I was the director of marketing for the largest satellite broadcast firm in pretty much the world. And we did all the, sent all the syndication, all that stuff. I remember when the first Gulf War hit, we were all, and it was coincidentally in a news convention.
Mm-hmm.
And so we put up a monitor, and there was CNN, and it was, because it was the only thing, it was the only game in town.
Yeah.
You know, and it was very, here's what the facts, because, you know, to quote Dragnet, most people won't know what the heck you're talking about there, but, you know, it's just, give me the facts. Mm-hmm. But because there is such a pressure from the ownerships and the stakeholders and all that stuff, they have to say, okay, what's in it? What can make its money? Okay, and so you can watch the exact same story and go, okay, so and so did this, okay, and you can then watch that same story on Fox, and then you watch the same one on CNN. And you go, what in the world? But the truth is pretty much in the middle, because people will want to take out whatever they want. Somebody could say something very innocuous, mm-hmm. and somebody on the left could say, well, no way, say that proves that. Or, you know, that same comment, somebody on the right would go, no, that's that. People,
right,
take a chill pill. You know, and so the networks are, in my opinion, they are a little bit more biased than they used to be. To me, the safe haven is still local news, because when people want to find out about it, it's like, unless you're a particular sports fan or something, you know, I'm not so sure if you are wondering, you're in an area that just had a fire, okay? What would you rather see? A fire, you know, that's here in your backyard, or we're talking about a fire that's halfway around the world?
Yeah. So the relevancy of local news is what we're talking about, and why that's
gotten more and more important.
More and more important.
Yeah.
That's why local stations, you're talking about local things that directly impact you, or having that kind of swing back up, because people realize that it's impacting me, and it's not as, I don't know, diluted. It's not as broad strokes as like the national ones, which are kind of like, or, you know, talking maybe even about the whole world. And then, you know, and so you kind of tend to have people like watch these local news more, and because that it's impacting them.
Well, like, for example, COVID, okay? You know, the national figures are very definitely important. Finding out what the policy, what's going on, et cetera. But if you really scratch down to it, I would I would pretty much bet on the fact that people want to know what's happening in my backyard. How is this going to impact me right now?
Right.
Now, you've got family all over the country, so yeah, there is still a reason to look at that. But that has changed it a lot. And again, a pet peeve that I look at is, some of these YouTubers and everything will do stuff. Well, okay, you're saying something or you're quoting something, social media, it's like, unless you have a first-person account, don't necessarily read, believe everything you read or everything you hear or everything you see.
Right. Well, like Abraham Lincoln said, you shouldn't believe everything that's posted on the internet. I mean, everybody knows that. And it's true. It's absolutely true, because Abe Lincoln said that. But without being, a little tongue-in-cheek, but it's, that's kind of what worries me, is the profit motive is hijacking, whether it's big broadcasting business or YouTubers, influencers, however you want to call them on the internet. The profit motive is hijacking what they produce. Those who are just going purely for that, right? There will be, hey, this is getting the most clicks, this is going to get the most views, this is what's going to produce me the most money, therefore I'm going to be doing that. And that's at a disservice to everything else that's happening out there that may be way more valuable to talk about. I'm doing this right now. I'm opening this up as a platform to people. I'm not monetizing this, so I don't have that pressure of like, I need to make money to survive. And I'm not dissing, businesses or those YouTubers, because they have to make money, they have to make a living, right? But you have to, as a viewer, you have to keep that in mind, funny cats and other things on YouTube that are, gaining millions and millions of views, or prolific over there just because of that. Realize that's algorithms are pumping this up because many people are looking at those things, and therefore advertising is going to go there because per click it's going to deliver this many eyeballs, whether it's a good fit or not. But that's what's driving a lot of this. So I'm curious, just curious from your perspective, how you see how that's going to kind of go on in the future, because those businesses have to balance these things, right?
The fine line, again, because I am very definitely a hybrid, okay? And they're kind of, the company looks at me and go, okay, well, let's see what Doug's doing.
Right.
It's one of these things where as much as things change, they stay the same, okay? So, for example, and again, I realize, most of the people watching this aren't going to have a clue what we're talking about here. But when TV started, there was a reason why soap operas are called soap operas. It's because the soap companies underwrote those.
Right.
And you literally would have, when cigarettes were legal, you would literally have Lucy and Desi,
product placement,
go whoosh and say, hi, I smoke like, no. And so, as does may sound, that's kind of what I do. And it's I won't do just anything because my reputation's on it, my name's on it. But I do use underwriters.
Right.
And those are the guys that will help. And so it's kind of like, it's Jessop's Journal. The whole funny, weird story about how this series got named is I've been using a reporter notebook for years. Right. Okay, I've got, and I like them because they're refillable and blah, blah, blah. I've got a whole, boxes of all my reporter notes. And so, because sometimes I want to refer back to them. I'm old school. So yes, I do type. I do put stuff into a computer, but I like to do this. And so my news director says, hey, let's name this series and everything, and I'm going, okay, and I'm writing down notes in this thing, and it's, you got that journal all the time. Why don't we call it Jessop's Journal? I'm going, okay, now from a Machiavellian standpoint, because this is my intellectual property, not the station's, type up, okay, Jessop's, okay, I have the domain. Yeah, let's do that,
Great idea.
Great idea. And the funny thing is, I've been using this company for years, and I had no idea that
looks very solid. What company?
It's called Rustico.
Rustico.
And I had no idea they were a Utah company, and I'd been using this one product for 10 years. It's like, okay. And so I went to Rustico and it says, hey, I'm going to start this new series. It's called Jessop's Journal, and come to find out you're the guys that have been making my journals. it doesn't take a rocket science to figure out. We ought to figure out a way to tie together.
Right.
So everybody that I interview gets a personalized, and not a little one, but a personalized leather journal. It's like, wow, that's cool stuff.
So this is where the brand manager
That's where
comes
I come
in.
Yeah.
Who else? Like you're a well-dressed man, and you typically sport a three-piece suit. I'm glad that you more cash.
Yeah, I have to admit, this is like the most dressed down I normally am.
So
okay.
you've seen it.
But yeah, this is a custom-made shirt.
Yeah.
So, but and a custom-made hat, because hats are kind of my moniker.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll talk about that as well. But your suits are made by
Taylor Cooperative.
And same thing, right?
Yeah.
You reach out to them and brand managing.
Well, here's the other thing. It's like, I'm a tall guy, okay, and my wife and I have the same length legs, yet she's like 5'7" and I'm like 6'1", okay? So I've got a really long torso, and so it's really hard to find shirts that are going to fit in and stay long enough, you know? And people do judge you, especially, fortunately for me, they don't judge men as much, but you wouldn't believe the comments that we would get, both positive and negative, with some of our female hosts. It's like, everything from, hey, I love that dress that Nisha was wearing on Good Things Utah today. Where did I get it?
Right.
Or what in the world was that girl thinking? Blah 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 blah.
Well,
it's like,
definitely the standards for women are way higher than for us men. I'm very happy that I'm a man, because that would be a terrible woman. Terrible woman. I just don't have the patience. I don't have the skill. It literally is a craft. I watch my wife getting ready for her professional life, and it's just like I'm in amaze. I'm just dumb, like you. I'm speechless.
Yeah, I hear you. I was raised by most of the women, and so I get it. It's just like, wow. But
hat. Let's talk about the hat.
The hat.
Yes.
Okay.
So what's the story behind the hat? That's what people know you. The dude with the hat.
I've been known as the man with the hat for 25 plus years? I can't remember. Without getting, I'll give you the semi-Reader's Digest version. When I was a kid, my jaw got broken, and it was wired shut for quite a long time and everything. And so I've always had kind of residual problems with my jaw, and then, I had this bump there, and I'm going, okay, it's just related to that. Well, apparently it got bigger and bigger. And my wife, talking about women, okay, I don't like going to the doctor. No offense, docs. But I hadn't been to the doctor in a long time, and my wife says, you need to go get this thing checked. I'm going, okay, fine. So I go to one doctor. He refers me to, for my back and for this, he refers me to two specialists. I go to this one doctor, and he's the best of the best. So I'll give him a shout out, Dr. Tyke Skedrose. But he pokes around there, okay, and it's like the week before Thanksgiving or something. Okay, Mr. Jessop, here's the deal. You have a tumor about the size of a golf ball. You might have cancer. I do surgeries on, Thursdays next week is Thanksgiving, so we're going to do the surgery the week after that. I'm going, whoa, time. Hang, whoa. I just met him.
Right.
I didn't know what it's like.
Not the news that you expected.
Yeah, so it's not the news I expected.
You have cancer.
And I'm going, whoa, okay. And so I was saying, well, can we wait till the beginning? And he says, I don't think you understand. So I'm going, okay. When a doctor say that, you kind of, okay,
Let me drop some medical knowledge on you.
He says this needs to get out now. And then he kind of looks around. He says, now, there's going to be this is an area where there's a lot of nerves. And so there is a significant, chance of a loss of facial muscle control.
Probably the last thing you want to hear.
Yeah, I mean, the cancer thing, I heard this and I freaked out more about that. It's just like, no, wait, time. So basically he was saying, we're going to take our time. And if this thing goes south, you could look like you've had a stroke. Well, not a good look for a broadcaster. And it's like, ooh. So that got my attention. But then he went on to say, I have some good news and some bad news. And I'm going, oh, okay, yeah. He says, okay, let's start with the good news. He says, well, we're going to slice from the back of the ear to your collar, and we're going to kind of go this, and it's where we do facelifts. So usually it's, it shouldn't scar that bad. I'm going, well, geez, and with this, can you help a brother out? And he says, no, I don't have that much time. I'm going, okay, I've got a doctor with a sense of humor. Good. But he says the bad news is if it gets sunburned, you're going to glow like Frankenstein. So I strongly suggest that you start wearing hats. Okay. And I worked for the jazz organization at the time with K-Jazz Television, and we had this big, huge client trip to Austria. And my wife and I signed up for all the little side trips and the whole bit. Well, management decided it was their own little private vacation. They took off. So here's like 50 clients, and their spouses, and they're looking at me. And so it's like, oh, okay. So Camille, my wife, and I became de facto tour guides. Mm-hmm. And so everybody says, if you need help, go talk to Doug. He's the guy wearing the hat. And these were the big, humongous advertiser clients. And I'm going, okay. And most of them weren't mine, So I got known very, very rapidly as being the guy.
So it worked out well for you.
So, yeah, I could be known for worse, And so
that's
and I've done that. And the crazy thing is that the news directors have been very positive, and they says, okay, yes. In fact, the current one says, no, I don't want you to. You are required to. It's like,
right. Well,
sweet.
It's part of
my gig.
Yeah, it's part of your brand.
Because people may not remember the name Doug Jessop, but most people will go, oh yeah, that guy that wears the hat.
Yeah. So between me and you and the whole internet of it,
yeah.
How many hats do you have?
Ooh. Well, it depends how you define a hat, okay? So, for example, this is not a hat, okay? This is a ball cap, and I'm giving it to you, okay?
Thank you.
This is a true hat, okay? This is a fedora, and actually this hat I had custom made, because all my hats are custom made by a group called JW Custom Hats.
Right.
And this one's called Cherokee Summer, because my great-great-great-grandfather was a Cherokee Indian. And so I made this hat in
Don't deflect
his honor.
my question. How many hats do you have?
Well, you notice I was doing that, huh? Well, let me put it this way. The social media thing, when you talked about that, before I did Jessop's Journal, I had like 30 Facebook followers because I only did family. Okay.
Right.
Now the news director asks me to publish every single day, and I've got Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all that stuff.
Welcome to the social media.
Yeah, I know, and it's a lot more. It's harder than people think.
It is.
But so I post every day on @Doug Jessop News. And, I'm going, okay, what kind of content am I going to do? Okay, well, let's see. And I'm taking a long time to
yeah, you're still deflecting.
No, because I'm also trying to count. It's like, but I produce the garden segments for Good Things Utah and and design the gardens for the TV station and all that stuff. So I do usually Doug's Daily Plant Pick because I got a lot of plants. But then somebody says, well, Doug, how many hats do you have? I'm going, well, so let's just put it this way. I have enough hats that typically once a week I will publish something with the hashtag Doug's Hat of the Week. And I have enough to have a different hat for over a year. Okay, how's that for an answer? I'm not going to give you, because I'm not quite sure how many I'm up to.
I can do the math, but I think my wife has probably over 50 pairs of shoes. I think she said that she's pared down things right now. And so I'm
close.
I think you're in that kind of dozens and dozens.
People give me a hard time, but it's funny because a lot of the hats though, some of them I am I'm the king of accessories. So, when I have my suits made, sometimes I'll bring in a hat and say, okay, we're going to make a suit based on this, hat, or vice versa, because I got to look good and et cetera, et cetera. But a lot of the time, it's because the hats mean something to me. And so I have them certain custom made. Yeah, I've got a couple in my will, literally. There was, I was raised with a theme, remember where you come from. Okay, and so sometimes there's those little objects that have been passed down from generation to generation.
Sentimental value attached to some of your hats.
Right. So I'll attach something and say, okay, this is the 1869 home. Okay, It is a gorgeous, really nice hat. And it's got the pin of my great-great-great-grandfather when he immigrated from Germany to Iowa, and it's just like, okay, here it is. And I know from the immigration records that pin is at least from 1869.
Right.
It's like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah. And the strap that you have around the hat, is I think you mentioned 100 years old.
Mm-hmm. This one is 100 years old.
All those little things that make, again, meaning and or part of a story and that help us, I guess, identify certain things about us. But it's interesting how you're kind of using it in a daily life. Do you have like a Lucky Charm hat that you like, hey, if I'm going to have this interview with this really, really potentially difficult celebrity, you're like, this fedora is coming out, baby, because it has like,
okay,
special powers.
Yes and no. Okay, this is one of those where it's almost embarrassing to say.
Perfect. Bring it on. This is the perfect place to do that.
So, women are used to asking, okay, so what are you wearing tomorrow type thing? Because the last thing that women want is to be wearing the same outfit, right? Okay. Well, the funny thing is in the newsroom, you will have the male anchor and the female anchor, and a lot of the time you do ask. So what are you wearing tomorrow so I can make sure that my tie or this and the other coordinates, Well, that's the other cool thing. I'm the only reporter that does not have to wear a tie. It's like, yeah.
It's a good trade-off.
Good, okay,
trade-off.
Had you been around, they're going to let Doug do whatever he does. Okay, yeah, fine. Because they want me to be I'm the approachable guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was funny. I remember there was an anchor way back, and we did not coordinate, but it's like 3 days out of the 5, we literally came wearing the same color. And so it's like, wow, okay. So occasionally, I'll ask people, or people ask me, so what should I wear for our interview? Whatever makes you comfortable, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes we will, compare fashion notes. Okay, so it's like, So, there was this musician that I met at the NAACP Awards. Come to find out, he's a percussionist for Alex Boyer, and he came in this really cool Afrikaans outfit and everything. And I asked him, okay, what color is it? Okay, it's going to be okay, yeah. And so I did have a hat,
right?
That I took to my hat shop and says, okay, it's a blue hat. This guy's going to be wearing blue, but he's also going to be wearing gold. So let's find a gold ribbon and put it. So
right. You customize it to the event.
Sometimes,
in a way.
Sometimes.
Switching topics really quick, for those, with everything that's happening right now in terms of people taking to the internet, whether they are podcasting, creating their own podcasts or YouTubers, and what are, from your perspective, because you've been in this industry for so long, and you've seen it grow, you've seen it change, you've seen it evolve and everything, but at the heart, you're a journalist and have that training. What would you like to see more out on the internet, or what advice would you give to those, the next generation, the youngsters who are getting into it and are doing their own thing, but also could benefit from the wisdom of someone who's been around and been doing a lot of different interesting things?
Okay, I'll start with what they shouldn't do. And I grew up in a military family. I'm the first person to say that every once in a while I'll use some salty language, but there's been a dearth of really language that just is not It's not cool. It's not acceptable. It's like sometimes I watch these guys and I'm going, what? Are you doing a contest to see how many F-bombs you can drop?
Right.
It's like, if you've got material, get it. I'm the first person to say that if
it merits.
if something dropped on my foot right now, I might say something, okay? But that's the first thing, okay? And so my point is, don't do something just to get attention. It's those pranks and everything because, I admit there's a show that we've got on the air that I don't particularly care for. And it's America's Funniest Videos. Okay, a fun video, yeah, okay, got that. But when you see somebody get hurt,
right,
that's not funny. It's like there's natural consequences. So
unless it hurt just a little bit, recoverable.
Yeah, okay, but you know what I'm getting at. I'm slapstick. I'm not a problem with, but it's like somebody getting
Yeah.
Anyway,
so that's
the first one.
So
is and again, I don't want to sound the old guy, but it's like a good story. I know a good story. This is the better way to put it. A good story does not need shock value. A good story doesn't need yellow journalism, headlines that are misleading. Good journalism doesn't need a whole heck of a lot of bad language.
So let the story stand on its own merit.
Exactly. But that's the other thing. But the other thing to find is there is a hook, okay? In our business, you have about 5 seconds to get somebody's attention.
Right.
And sometimes that's the headline.
Yeah, how do you do that?
You weave it as the complete story. So for me, I like to do kind of affectionately what's called a slow burn. Okay?
What's that?
But it's a story that I don't care if it's 10 minutes, I don't care if it's an hour, I don't care if it's 1 minute. A good story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Okay? And what I'm talking about is okay. We're gonna ad-lib this one right now with you and me, okay? Okay. This is a globe, okay? But it's not really a globe. It's actually a little bar thing. Okay.
and empty.
Okay, so what's the story about that? How'd you get that?
I always wanted to have one of those. I think I felt like the studio. I wanted to make the studio cozy in a way, and also it kind of represents to me right now, as I put it, maybe subconsciously I put it over here. It also represents that the whole world, opinions, and interesting people are everywhere. And I do have people who come in and are guests in my studio here, but also do remote conversations with people from all over the world, and that is kind of reminding me in a way that's where interesting people are all over the place, not only here, not only in one specific place. And so that's kind of that.
There you go.
No booze inside, though.
So basically what it gets down to is, and I'll synopsize what you kind of just said. Okay, so the name of your podcast again is?
Right now it's the Adrian Sinclair Show.
The Adrian Sinclair Show, okay. Next in the Adrian Sinclair Show, we're going to talk about this globe and what it means. Okay. Okay, now you got my attention. Okay. Then we get into this started as Adrian trying to figure out a set piece, trying to decorate this. He's doing the podcast and everything. What's he going to do that can make meaning to him, but also draw people in together? You know what? It all came together with what a globe represents, because what is a globe? A globe is a representation of the entire world. And when you come on the Adrian Sinclair Show, he's going to talk to people from all over the world with all kinds of different stories. But you know what? Boys and girls, children of all ages, don't forget, we all still live on the same planet. With another entry into Jessop's Journal, I'm Doug Jessop, ABC4 News.
Excellent. Okay. Excellently done. And while I have you here, maybe we should just pick your brain to figure out what we're going to call this show as we kind of are summing things up over here and rolling to the end. What would you title this show?
I'd have to think about
that show,
because
this
because
episode,
well, here's this episode.
Is it going to be rolling with Doug Jessop, getting to know?
Here's
Doug
the
Jessop?
interesting thing. Part of that, okay, because like for example, when we were doing this, my news director has a mantra that he keeps pounding into my head. He says, "Okay, Doug, you've been doing this for a long time, et cetera, but the reality is this world is changing, and you are here as long as you want to be, and doing all these stories, and we love you, we're backing you, et cetera. But we all realize that things are changing a little bit, and so it's not the news stories that change; it's just strictly the delivery device,
Right.
Okay, I started in radio. I mean, the funky thing is, my first radio job, I worked for the national group that had the radio channels for the blind. So I would literally read a newspaper from cover to cover, and I found out very, very fast that the written word and the spoken word are different.
Yeah.
And so I literally had to adapt that on the fly.
Right.
And it made me a better person to be able to tell stories. I'm like, okay, I get this. And then you go into the radio side, and then I go into the satellite business, and then the TV business, and now I'm a hybrid with the online world. He always says, build your brand. Okay? So I've got another gift for you, and this will kind of answer your question, okay? So one of my underwriters, since this is supposed to have booze in it, okay, here we go.
Now it does.
Today at the Globe, as we are fashioning this and winding down this story, Adrian Sinclair today is visiting with Doug Jessop, and we're opening up the little container. Well, we have, of course, our Ogden's own distillery product, which just so happened to be a underwriter for Doug Jessop. Well, one of the products they make is this. They make, hang on, there we go. They make a hand sanitizer. Okay, I do not recommend putting this near anybody that smokes because it's 80% alcohol. It's like whoosh, it will sanitize. And so I was doing the story, and these guys surprised me and said, "Hey, we want to do something special for you." I'm going, "Okay, what? Send us your logo." So now I have Jessop's Journal hand sanitizer, and so it's got my little hat. It's got the Jessop's Journal, but the slogan line right there is what I would name this episode.
Perfect. If I can read that, stories have power.
That's right.
I love it. And that's what we're going to call this episode. Thank you, Doug, for being on the show.
Certainly.
It's an honor and pleasure of having someone who has so much to share, and I thank you for sharing that with me over here and with the audience, and kind of peeling the veneer of information about you, because you've been helping other stories permeate everywhere. So it's time to kind of talk a little bit more about you. And so thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you for being over here. Thank you for sharing what you think is going to kind of happen next as well in the future. So
we'll see.
We'll see. So really appreciate it. And and we're going to close it at that. So folks, thank you for being over here with us through this hour of conversation. I have my hat from Doug Jessop over here. And for sure, life is never boring. If you like what we did over here, if you got some value out of it, please share it with others in your social media networks and circles. And that's what this show is all about. The Adrian Sinclair Show is about talking with interesting people about interesting things that bring value to others who are watching this. And I definitely got a lot of value of talking to Doug today, and I'm going to make some changes on my show based on that, and we'll see how things shake out. So thank you again, and until next time, I'm Adrian Sinclair, and you're Doug Jessop.
Yes, I am.
See ya.
See you later.
Thanks for listening to a podcast with interesting people. Please subscribe and leave a review or comment.
And support us by sharing our episodes on social media. We really appreciate it. And for more information, visit us at apodcast.com. Thanks.